Welcome back to another episode of Around the World. This is episode 16 as we continue to move along this NBA season. We just wrapped out group play for the NBA Cup. It took what felt like forever. Like last year, it felt like it went by so fast. This year, it felt like it took a super long time. But we are finally done. The bracket is here, and that is our community question for the day. I do this every single episode. Feel free to answer down in the comments below. Community question is just really your bracket predictions. Your bracket predictions for how this is going to go. For those of you that are unaware, I will read them out to you right now. Over in the Western Conference, we have number 1 OKC against number 4 Dallas, number 2 Houston against number 3 Golden State, and then moving on to the East, we have Milwaukee against Orlando, and then we have New York against Atlanta. My predictions for the bracket are this. I'm going to take OKC over Dallas, Houston over Golden State, although Golden State did just beat Houston last night. I'm going to take Milwaukee over Orlando. I'm going to take the Knicks over Milwaukee. Back to the West, I'm going to take OKC over Houston. They had a very good game not too long ago against each other. And then I'm going to take the Knicks over the Bucks. I got OKC against the New York Knicks in the in-season tournament final, and I am going to take the Oklahoma City Thunder to win the NBA Cup here in its second ever season. There you go. Those are my predictions. Drop yours down in the comments below. It can be as simple as a winner, a surprise team you think might make a little run, whatever it may be. Drop your prediction down below for how the in-season tournament is going to go. That's probably going to be the last we talk of it until I think next Monday. That might be it for the in-season tournament. I mean, we'll kind of say, because I believe the final is next Thursday, or no, I think the final might be next weekend. I'm not sure, honestly. I probably shouldn't say that, but yeah. So we'll talk about that the closer we get to the final, once we have some of these games done and we start to head to Vegas for the end of the in-season tournament. Now let's get on to what we do every single episode, the weekly notes, going over what happened over the course of the last, in this case, 3-4 days of NBA basketball. Starting with Monday, we really do not have much to talk about here. It was a relatively dull slate of games, small slate of games, and the one that was, looking like it could have been a good game, Wolves-Lakers on paper, turned out to be an absolute blowout. LeBron played horrifically bad. The Lakers played horrifically bad. The Wolves dominated them offensively and defensively. We'll talk about LeBron a little bit more later, because we seriously need to talk about what is going on with him. But, that's literally it for Monday. Monday was a very simple slate of games. I was actually at this Wolves-Lakers game. For those of you who are unaware, I'm a Wolves fan. So I try to get to as many games as I can in a given year. Let's head to Tuesday, though, and go back to talking about the in-season tournament. Starting first with how my predictions went. We knew one West team that was set, and I believe two West teams that were set, and one East team that was set, and I made my predictions for how it was going to shape out. This is how they went. I said that OKC was going to win Group B. I was right in that, and I said the Mavs would make it as a wild card. I also was correct in that. Let me double check the standings here and see how much the Mavericks made it by, because they had a plus 46 point differential, and so like I said, all they needed was pretty much a 1 point win against Memphis, and they were going to move on. They did just that, got a nice little win against the Memphis Grizzlies, and they moved on, knocked out teams like the Suns, who had a great in-season tournament run, right? 3-1, only lost to the winner of the group, plus 30 point differential, but the Mavs just had such a gap that it became very difficult for them to move on. East, I also nailed as well. I hit all of my predictions here. I said that the Celtics were not going to make it through. I was correct in that. I said that the Bucks were going to beat Detroit to win their group. I was right in that. I said the Knicks were going to beat the Magic to win their group, and the Magic were going to make it through on point differential. I was right in both of those as well. So I went absolutely perfect on my predictions for how these were going to shape out. So I'll give myself a little pat on the back for that, but not the most impressive prediction in the world. Let's get into some of those games though. For the Nuggets, they've had some up and down games really all season long, but Jokic put together an MVP performance. It really, it's simple as that. It was very impressive to watch. 38, 10, 6, 5 steals, extremely efficient. Like I said a couple episodes ago, he's just gonna win MVP. The only competitor I can see right now is Giannis. Going statistically, Jokic is at that situation kind of that we saw in 2020, 2021, where even though the team's healthy now, they're not as good as they were. So if they're not going to be a top 2-3 seed, they're going to need Jokic to help them win every single night, right? Night in and night out, and his stats are just simply going to be better. The team might not be better, but the stats for Jokic are going to be better, which is going to lead him to an MVP season. So kept going with that. The Pacers continue to struggle. I think I've actually got them on here twice. Yeah, I do. For a loss that they took on Wednesday as well. I'm going to pull up their schedule because their last few losses, it's not exactly like they're playing, the toughest teams in the league here, and they're still kind of tumbling down the Eastern Conference. So the game I was talking about on Tuesday, they lost to the Raptors. Hallie played great. Scotty Barnes' career high outmatched him, though. Scotty had 35. Halliburton had 30 points, 4 threes. A good road performance. Got to give him credit where it's due. But that being said, the Pacers have lost 4 straight, and it's to the Pistons, the Grizzlies, the Raptors, and the Nets. They lost to the Nets on Wednesday. It's just looking bad. This was the part of the year where I was kind of like, the Pacers are going to be fine. Right, they're playing these weak teams, right? You can't fault them for losses to the Bucks, losses to the Rockets, maybe that loss to the Heat, loss to the Magic here and there. But what you can fault them for is barely beating the Blazers, losing to the Pistons by 20, losing to the Grizzlies by 15, good team, losing to the Raptors by 10, losing to the Nets by 10. This was the time to get 4 or 5 out of 6 games, and work your way back up to 500, solidify yourself as one of the good teams in the Eastern Conference that is so weak, and they're absolutely not doing that. They do play against the Bulls tonight, then they got the Hornets, the obviously weak Sixers, and then the Pelicans before they go on their West Coast trip, which could be an absolute gauntlet for them. Suns, Kings, Warriors, then they go Thunder, Celtics, Bucks, Heat, Suns. We're talking about a world where this team is 11-21 in a few weeks here. So this could get very, very ugly for the Pacers. They're really going to have to turn it around because the East is so weak, but they still have competitive teams, right? The East is weak, but they're not weak enough that you can be 10 games below 500 and be a competitor. And right now they're 5 games below 500, and they're actually the 10 seed. Teams like the Bulls and the Nets are actually ahead of them in the Eastern Conference right now. So, talked about this briefly. Luka and the Mavs come back to beat the Grizzlies to advance on for them. Great game from Luka Doncic. Suns get a nice W against the Spurs. Did the best they could, honestly, outside of just point differential, which can't really fault them. It's tough to just run the score up on any given team. And then we get the news that Katie's out for, I believe, at least a week, or is reevaluated in a week. So that's just tough news for the Suns, who have had such a great start to the season, and then injuries kind of slowed them down, and then now they move back up, and then now they're injured again. It's just such a jumble of stuff, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they lost to the Pelicans last night, so it's just tough, man. This team is not the same when they're not fully healthy, and you could say that for any team, but the Suns specifically, it just doesn't feel like they can buy a win if they don't have KD, if they don't have Beal. When they're not fully healthy, it's just tough. It's just tough. That does it for the in-season tournament recap. Like I said, that should be the last we discuss the in-season tournament until we actually get into some real gameplay in the knockout stages coming next week. On to Wednesday. This is going to be a very short episode because, again, there just wasn't much to talk about. This is going to happen. Sometimes we're going to have episodes like this, and I'm currently formulating different topics and ideas and things to talk about. On Monday, we're going to be doing the power rankings of all 30 teams, since we've got a little weekend slate in front of us. Usually those episodes are shorter, so more topics coming for you guys so that it's not just very short episodes of weekly recaps each and every single week. Like I said, on to Wednesday. The Wolves get a big W. We talked about what they did against the Lakers. They did it again against the Clippers. Just suffocating, really. They absolutely suffocated them. They held them to, I would almost say they held them under 80 points. Obviously they didn't, but they scored, I want to say 20 something in the fourth quarter. I don't know if they scored 20 in a quarter other than that. I believe they had 37 at halftime. This was pure domination. Let me go take a look at the box score here, because they absolutely bullied them. The defense for the Wolves has been the biggest change. We talked about how their offense isn't great. It's just not going to be. It's as simple as that. They're not the same with Cat. The spacing isn't the same. without Cat, I should say. The spacing isn't the same without Cat, and the offense is going to be the same. But the defense definitely can be good, and they've shown it over the last few games. Beating the Clippers, barely, then dominating the Lakers, dominating the Clippers in LA. Yeah, I mean, just listen to this. Quarter by quarter, 14 points for the Clippers, 18 points, 18 points. The Wolves got to the fourth quarter without allowing a 20-point quarter. That's ridiculous. The Wolves scored 20 plus in every single quarter, and the Clippers only scored 20 plus once, and that was in the fourth quarter when the Wolves had all their bench guys in, Clippers had all their bench guys in, and they just barely got to 80 points. Incredible defensive display. Gobert looks great. I think one of the biggest differences he's making is he's actually trying to read those passes from the top of the key where the guard would kind of just give it to the center and then run off of him. Gobert's not having that anymore. He's gotten like 3 fast break steals where it's a lazy pass back to the center so that Harden or, whoever, LeBron, D'Lo can run off of AD, run off of Zubac to go get a little makeshift screen when they're in a weird spot. And Gobert's just all over the pass, stealing it, running the floor, making some good passes. He's finishing it with dunks. He just looks great. He looks like the anchor of the defense we saw last year and more of what we saw in Utah as well. So phenomenal stuff from him. Phenomenal stuff from the Wolves. We'll see how long this defense can hold or if it's just a little bit of a hot streak, the same way they had such a cold streak earlier in the season. Speaking of hot streaks, the Atlanta Hawks. Wow. I believe they're on 5 or 6 game win streak, 5 or 6 in a row. They just knocked off the Bucks on Wednesday. And in the Bucks, I believe, 7-game win streak. And when you look at the Eastern Conference, I talked about feeling like I had the Hawks almost too high. I think I put the Hawks at 8 or 9, or maybe I was a little more ambitious. No, I think it was 8. It was either 8 or 9 because I believe I had the teams you would have expected above them, right? Cavs, Celtics, Magic, Knicks, Bucks, Sixers, and then it was Pacers, Magic. I had a lot of teams really high up there, so I think the Hawks actually ended up all the way in 9, and I thought that was actually a little ambitious. They look better than that, and I talked about how with Trae Young by himself, it's such an advantage for Atlanta, and there's still so much season left to play. The Heat could definitely pass them. If the Pacers get back on track, they could definitely pass them. But I think we're talking about being in a situation now where, in all likelihood, the Sixers at best are going to be a play-in team because this is a big. We're talking 13 games out of the 1 seed right now. We're talking 6 games out of even the 6 seed, out of being out of the play-in, which I know doesn't sound like a lot this early in the season, but the Sixers aren't. It's not like the Sixers have everybody back right now. It's not like they're fully healthy and it's okay, here we go. Embiid's going to keep missing games. Maxey, Paul George are going to keep missing games throughout the season. More likely Paul George than Maxey, but all these sorts of things are just going to add up. Wins that they should have had. Game against the Magic the other night, they definitely could have won that game. And the difference between 6 and 14 and 5 and 15 is huge. It's a big difference. And that's, you take that from a 4-game difference compared to a 5.5. It's huge. And you cannot afford, you're almost at the point, you cannot afford that anymore. We're damn near a fourth of the way through the season. Teams have played 20 games. Some teams have played more than 20 games. We are a fourth of the way through the NBA season. Right? We're in December now. You cannot be sitting this far back with the Hornets, with the Wizards, with the Raptors. The Raptors are ahead of them. And obviously, they can leapfrog up this conference so quick. This is not the Western Conference. The Pelicans are dead in the water. There's zero chance the Pelicans move their way out. The Sixers do have a chance, but they're getting to the point where that chance is no longer, okay, we're going to do what the Bucks did and just boost our way back up. They're at the point where best possible scenario seems like a berth, a high play-in berth. Not that it can't be done, but yeah, sorry to get off topic there. After talking about the excuse me, guys. After talking about the Hawks there, but yeah, phenomenal stuff from the Hawks. Like what I'm seeing from them. They are a team that moved up in the conference. Sixers are a team that moved down, and so the Hawks might even outperform what I originally thought. Talked about the Pacers a little bit earlier, losing to the Nets on this day, and then the Heat. The Heat have had a very weird season. I haven't really enjoyed watching them, if I'm being completely honest with you. They're never really a team I enjoy watching. They're a mediocre team at best right now, but they're putting together some good performances. They'll have some bad performances, but man, will they just go out there and go, wow, this looks like the Heat team we know that can be a competitor out in the Eastern Conference, and they did that against the Lakers. Lakers have serious problems. First, like I said, I want to compliment the Heat. They looked phenomenal. The scoring is the biggest thing. The defense we know has been good for years. The scoring, if it can build up like it did in this game, it's going to look great for them to maybe have a chance to be a top 6 seed in this week Eastern Conference and kind of get that narrative out of there that people like me have that, oh, they just go to the play-in and then just go. That's it. They just go to the play-in and hope. And then they try in the playoffs instead of the regular season. Get yourself a top 6 seed. Save yourself an extra game or two. Play a little bit of a worse team instead of playing the Celtics round 1 or whatever. And give yourself a chance to make a playoff run like you have in the past multiple times. Now, let's get into Lakers, man. First things first, I want to talk about LeBron James. We are talking about potentially the coldest stretch in his career. One for his last 23 from 3. He had missed 20 consecutive threes. That's where we were with LeBron James. He had missed 20 consecutive threes. He does hit one in that game against Miami, but he's 1 for 4. I mean, just look at these last few games. His last good game was November 21st. He put up 5 for 9 from 3. After that, 1 for 4, 2 for 7, 0 for 0 for 0 for 0 for 1 for 4. It's brutal. I mean, this is genuinely hurting the team. In these last 5 games, 2 wins, 2 and 3. One of those wins is a 1-point win against Utah. I mean, you can't be going, and that was an 0 for 9 LeBron James. If LeBron hits a few threes, a little bit more efficient, that's a blowout game. LeBron gets some rest, and then that game where they go on to play Minnesota the following night, maybe LeBron's a little more rested. Maybe he doesn't have such a bad game like he did against Minnesota because Minnesota absolutely suffocated him. LeBron 4 for 16, 0 for 4 from 3, 10 points. I told you guys, I was at this game. We were actively in the crowd like, oh my God, LeBron's not going to get it. LeBron's not going to get 10 points for the first time since 2007. That was LeBron's first negative game score game of the year. I mean, that's crazy. That's ridiculous. A minus 28 plus minus, and then followed it up in that Miami game with a minus 21. Even in the Jazz game, 0 plus minus. The loss to OKC, minus 12. He has not had a positive plus minus. He's had 1 positive plus minus in the last, 9, 10 games? I mean, it's legitimately been bad. And I want to clarify this. LeBron's ridiculous. He's near 40 years old, and he's still playing phenomenal. He's probably going to be an all-star again, despite some of this stuff just on the fan vote alone. So let's not take anything away from him. But if you want to talk about the Lakers, LeBron's going to need to start taking nights off. And JJ Redick talked about this. If this is how it's going to look, if he doesn't, take 5, 10, 15 games off throughout the year, trust me, I'd love LeBron to play every game. I'm sure LeBron wants to play every game, but I don't know if his body can handle. He's a 40-year-old man, and he's looked incredible this year. He had the streak of, 4 straight triple-doubles? Yeah, 4 consecutive triple-doubles. He had a 39, 7, and 6 game against Memphis, even though they lost. It's still there. But if his body's going to wear like this, he's going to go into slumps like this, he might need a night off here and there. Like I said, 5, 10 games throughout the season, or this could get really, really ugly for him and the Lakers. As for the Lakers as a whole, JJ Redick mentioned this as well in an interview. They just they can't even grasp simple concepts. It is literally fundamentals. It is what you would expect your, middle school coach to say. It is fundamental. I mean, we're not making passes. There's no effort on defense. We're not rotating. There's some ugly clips of guys literally just walking into the paint and getting layups, getting dunks, getting open looks, not switching properly. The most simple stuff. And they talked about JJ Redick, what adjustments can you make? And he said, I can't make adjustments if we can't even do the simple things. If you can do the simple things, then you can adjust and get into more complex things. But if you can't do a basic switch on a pick and roll, if you can't rotate, what adjustments can you make? There's nothing to be done. And so they really, really need to just hit the reset button and just calm down, realize they're not out of it yet, right? They're kind of with a bunch of teams in the West that are a little bit, 500 area, a little bit worried. And for the love of God, Lakers fans, stop blaming the coach. You'd think you'd realize after 3 coaches in 4 years or whatever it is, maybe it's not the coach's problem. Maybe it's the players. You guys go up and down with D'Lo all the time. LeBron's defense rarely gets talked about, right? AD had another ghosting game. He's been a phenomenal player this season. Had another ghosting game against Miami. They don't even think he had 10 points. You can't expect to win that way. And there's no coach in the world that can fix that if that is what is going on. So stop blaming the coach. Not too long ago, a month ago, we were talking about how great JJ Redick was, right? Lakers were 4-1 or 5-1 or whatever it was, looking good, and we were like, JJ Redick was the difference maker. And then you go on a cold streak, and now JJ Redick's the problem. Enough of that. I mean, seriously, it's frustrating as a person who isn't even a fan of the Lakers. I'm not a Lakers fan, and I'm watching that like, what are you guys talking about? And I know it's one of the historic franchises, like the Yankees are, like the Celtics are, that they're just going to have fans that if it's not a championship, it's a bust. If it's not a really, really good seat, like they were pissed about that Western Conference Finals run a few years ago because they got embarrassed by Denver at the end of it. Right? This is a team. This is a team and an organization that needs championships, needs finals appearances. They don't like this stuff, and so it's ridiculous for you guys to set your standards on being championship contenders when you know you have a guy who is well past his prime. LeBron is great. He's well past his prime. You have a young coach. You have a young roster. Honestly, there's some young players out there. Max Christie, Dalton Connect. Obviously, Brian hasn't played much, but there's some young guys on that roster that are still learning NBA basketball. Rookies. Max Christie's not a rookie, but he's pretty damn close. I mean, he didn't get much minutes with Darvin Ham, and now he's getting minutes with JJ Redick here. So stop blaming the coach and just have a little bit of patience. Seriously, this team is going to be very different in a couple of years. So right now, enjoy it while you can with LeBron there. LeBron could be gone this season, maybe next season, right? This Lakers team's going to look very different. AD is going to be the lead, right? Maybe Dalton Connect is now the big scorer, right? You've also been missing Austin Reeves in some of these games, right? Just calm down, relax a little bit, and move on because it's frustrating as someone else, a bystander, who's watching this. On to Thursday. Let's wrap out this week with another little talking point, which is the Knicks and how I think they're going to be the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. I do. I know the Cavs and Celtics are well ahead. I think the Knicks are going to be the 2 seed. They're really putting it together. If they can stay healthy, they seem to be quite dominant, right? They had such a slow start last night, and it didn't matter. They absolutely destroyed Charlotte. Again, Charlotte's not, the greatest frame of reference for a good team, but still. I think they're going to be the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. I really do. I think the Celtics are going to be number 1, and I think that the Knicks are going to be number 2. That's what I predicted originally at the start of this season. It was not Cavs, Celtics, Knicks, and then I believe Sixers, Bucks. Obviously, Sixers, very, very likely not happening. But, yeah, Celtics 1, Knicks 2. The Cavs are currently 5.5 games clear of them. Just got a great win against the Nuggets. Crazy Jokic game. Didn't matter. Cavs got it done. That being said, the Cavs are on a 70-win pace right now. 70. That's not happening. I'm sorry. Cavs are a great team. There's only been 2 teams ever to get 70 wins, if I'm not mistaken. It's just the 72-10 Bulls and the 73-9 Warriors. That's it. There's not been another 70-win team. The Cavs are not going to be that team to get 70 wins. 5.5 games is so doable. And I know we talked about how it's a big gap for teams like the Sixers, but that's a big gap because those teams are awful and hurt and under 500. The Knicks can make up a 5.5 game gap like that. I mean, let's look at the Knicks schedule here. Because I was getting into it with somebody on Blue Sky talking about this. I was like, dude, they definitely can boost up. And honestly, the only way they don't, or not the only way they don't, but the only thing that could potentially affect them is the in-season tournament. They play harder competition, right? But they can beat the Hawks. They can go beat the Bucks or Magic, whoever wins through that. They definitely can. They just destroyed the Magic a couple nights ago. Listen to this schedule. Pistons, Raptors, Hawks in the NBA Cup, and then very likely, if they win that game, well, not very likely, if they win that game, which I think is very likely, they then play the Bucks or Magic, who they definitely can beat, either team. Then they play the Wolves. Cat comes back to Minnesota. Then listen to this little run. Pelicans, Raptors, Spurs, Magic, Wizards, Jazz. That's all the way to January 1st. If we're talking about them going, if my predictions come true and they go to the final, right? They go to the in-season tournament, the NBA Cup final. 2-0 in regular season play with the win over the Hawks and win over the Bucks or Magic. That's 2. Wolves game, toss-up. We'll leave it over here. Pelicans, they're winning that game. Raptors, they're winning that game. Spurs, we could leave it in toss-up, but I still think they're going to win it. Magic, toss-up. Wizards win, Jazz win. That is 7 wins, if my predictions are right about the in-season tournament, and 3 toss-up games. And I would even consider the Knicks they're going to be the Spurs on Christmas Day in New York. So that's 2 toss-up games, 8 wins. If that happens, let's say they lose those 2 toss-up games I'm talking about, and they get those 8 wins. 22-10. 22-10, 12 games above 500. They're currently 6 games above 500. I mean, they seriously could be not upper half. They can be the upper echelon of the Eastern Conference. They can be the 2 seed. And I know how good the Cavs have been. And it's been very, very fun to watch them. But I don't see them staying on a 70-win pace. And 5 games can happen like that in the NBA. A 2-game losing streak for the Cavs, highly unlikely, I would say right now. A 2-game winning streak for the Knicks, and we are right in play. Let's look at the Cavs schedule, because to be fair, I actually haven't looked at theirs. They do have a relatively easy schedule for the next coming weeks, and the advantage of not making the in-season tournament group play, or knockout play, means they get some easier games throughout the in-season tournament. They play the Wizards and then the Nets. So I would expect them to win pretty much their next 4 games. Bucks, that could be a game. They play the Nuggets again in Denver, that could be a game. Right? They've got the Warriors, the Lakers, the Mavericks, all coming in the next month. Not to mention playing the Thunder, still the Celtics to play 2 more times eventually. So Thunder they have to play twice. Like I said, Celtics have to play 2 times, Rockets they have to play 2 times. Don't want to take anything away from the Cavs start to the season. But 70-win pace doesn't necessarily feel realistic, if I'm being completely honest. So I'm going to say the Knicks are going to be the 2 seed out east right now. That's what my big prediction is going to be. The Cavs are going to fall to the 3 seed. The Knicks will be the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. The Celtics will be the 1 seed when we get to April, May playoff time. Last thing to talk about was just the Pelicans beating the Suns. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Suns just really can't find it when they're not fully healthy, and it sucks for them because I've been predicting the Suns so high year after year after year, going, this year they're going to be healthy, this year they're going to be healthy, and they just don't do it. Right? Even then, despite that, they're still a 7 seed in the Western Conference right now. I would fully expect teams like the Clippers to drop down at some point throughout the season. I don't think the Clippers are going to be able to maintain pace of being a top 6 team. Teams like the Nuggets catching up, teams like the Wolves getting hot. So we'll see how it goes. The Suns can definitely squeak into that top 6. Even the Rockets, I would say, are a team that a few losses here and there could completely change their season. Right? The Rockets, we're talking about this incredible young up-and-coming team, which they are, but they're only 2 games clear of being in the play-in from where they are the 2 seed right now. That's how close the Western Conference is. And in the Western Conference, you can't afford to take some losses. You cannot do that. You can't afford to start slowly. Well, not start slowly, to have slow lulls, at least later into the season. Early in the season, you can. Teams like the Mavericks started out real slow, moved up. You saw it with the Warriors already. The Warriors were the 1 seed like a week and a half ago. Now they're the 5 seed, right? And then they lost like 2 of 3, like 4 or 5, like stuff that just happens in an NBA season. And now we're going from, oh my God, the Warriors are back, to, okay, they're just good. They're a good team. So I can't fault the Suns for not being able to win without their best player, really. But I still do feel confident in their abilities to stay up top as long as this KD injury doesn't linger on, doesn't have another week, multiple weeks out like what happened in prior years where he'd get an injury, come back, injured back. If he can just stay healthy, play like 60, upper 50s, low 60s games, I think the Suns are going to be perfectly fine. I think they could be a top 6 seed. And that wraps out this episode of Around the World. As always, if you made it to the end, I really, really do appreciate it. If you are watching me over on YouTube, be sure to check out the episode over on Spotify. Leave it a like, leave it a rating, leave it a comment, whatever works for you. Look up Around the World, look up 40Boss30 on Spotify. You will find me. Same goes for Spotify listeners. Come over, check out the YouTube channel, subscribe, like, leave a comment, whatever it is to help this channel, help the community. I really, really do appreciate it. Search up Around the World, search up 40Boss30. You will find me there as well. As always, on TikTok, you can find me WardyBoss30. Just look it up. A little more short form content. Some stuff that you more in depth talking about teams that I talk about on the podcast, but information you don't regularly see. I've talked about the Wolves on there. I've talked about the Pacers on there more in depth than what you've seen in here, with more stats to back up kind of what I'm talking about. So be sure to go check out those videos. And once again, if you made it to the end, thank you so much for watching and listening. I really, really do appreciate it. And I'll see you guys on Monday for the next episode of Around the World.